coming up on Empower with Tristan Canfor-Dumas.
If the only people in the world solving critical problems don't look like us, then we're missing something here. So I'm serious, mark my words. If you get an undergraduate degree in engineering, it will be the toughest thing you do, okay? If you don't gather, if you don't convene, if you don't take seriously the assignment that is on your lives, then all of the things that we've been talking about today, however many ways this conversation gets chopped up, it all boils down to the world has problems, technology is solving them, and if you all don't come together to help fix the technology, the problems will be solved by someone that doesn't have your good intentions in mind.
Hello, welcome back. My name is Tristan Canfor-Dumas. I'm the host of Empower. Today, we are blessed to have the CEO of the National Society of Black Engineers, all better known as NSBE, Janeen Uzzell. Today we are going to talk about lots of things from STEM, NSBE, leadership. The whole episode is just going to be packed. So without further ado, sit back, relax, enjoy, and most importantly, take notes. So,
yes.
The first question.
Who
is Janeen Uzzell?
Who is Janeen Uzzell? Well, Tristan, that's a lot of questions, so let's see, how do we keep it brief? I am an American who loves Ghana. So much so that I came here to live many years ago. Well, no, not many years ago. I lived here for many years, just a few years ago, working for the company that I was with. And so I just want the audience to know I'm not just this like American lady trying to come tell y'all everything. I actually have lived here. I'm not Ghanaian. I'm Jerseyan. I'm from New Jersey, and went to an HBCU. So that stands for Historically Black College and University. I went to North Carolina A&T State University, studied mechanical engineering. I spent almost 20 years at GE. And when I was at GE, I was focused on ultrasound, maternal and infant care. So my career was mechanical engineering and healthcare technologies. That's what brought me to Africa, where I had an amazing opportunity to do great work here. When I ended my time here, I moved back to the U.S., went over to Silicon Valley on the West Coast, and I had the coolest job. I ran Wikipedia. It was the most amazing experience, top 5 website in the world. I'm sure many people in your listening audience use Wikipedia. And had a chance to work on that platform and with all of the engineers around the world that make Wikipedia work. And now I'm at NSBE. I've been a part of NSBE since I was in college, and have a chance to come back and be the organization's first CEO and to help elevate our organization even more. Can I tell you a little bit about NSBE?
Sure, tell us.
NSBE is amazing. So we are the largest ecosystem of Black STEM talent and thought leadership, not just in America, but in the world. Because we cover a community that ranges from pre-college, so 3rd grade to 12th grade. Those are American years, so that's the only way I know how to break it down. And then all of your collegiate years, and then your professional years, like myself. So we have over 700 chapters that are in the United States and in Africa. We have chapters in Ghana. Ghana was the first country on the continent where we created an NSBE chapter 25 years ago. We have chapters in Rwanda, Nigeria, South Africa. So we have this community of students. NSBE was founded in 1975 by 6 Black men that went to Purdue University. And 4 of them are still living. I spent a lot of time with them. And they told me that on their campus, they could go almost a year and not see any Black people because there were so few of them, and even less in the College of Engineering. So they formed what was then called the Society of Black Engineers to create a community of culture for students to study, to help each other graduate, and to get jobs. They later became the National Society of Black Engineers, and here we are almost 50 years later. We have been graduating. Our current strategic initiative is to graduate 25,000 Black engineers annually. We're so close to that number. And so we are graduating a high rate of Blacks in STEM, not just engineering, comp sci, software, all of those things. And we give scholarships. We create academic excellence opportunities. And most importantly, we make sure that our members have jobs and are contributing to the workforce. Because what's most important is that the workforce needs a diversity of thought. And if the only people in the world solving critical problems don't look like us, then we're missing something here. So our job is to make sure we continue to infuse and penetrate the market with people like me, people like yourself and others and members to do the great work. So that's who NSBE is, the short story, and that's a little bit about who I am.
Okay. Well, in your short story of who you are, you mentioned engineering. And I know for me, as well as so many of my friends, when we hear the word engineering, the thing that comes to our mind is physics, math, all these very intense subjects. What would you say to that?
I would say that's true. But I would say that you can't let that stop you. Because if that's the case, I wouldn't be an engineer either. So many people wouldn't. Any work that you're going to do and excel at is going to be hard. Whether that's math or fitness, cooking, I don't know. Anything that you choose to do, if you want to excel at it, it's going to be difficult. The coursework of engineering is hard. It absolutely is. But unless you're actually studying, physics and engineering, then every course is not going to be physics. Your high school curriculum will include physics, but it's possible, depending on the type of engineering you study, that you won't have to do that in college. Let's be clear. I think that every student that's able to get a degree in engineering should do that in their undergraduate studies. Even if you decide that you want to study banking in your master's or in your profession, because the critical thinking that muscle that you flex when you're studying engineering, you don't get to do that anywhere else. Engineering challenges your thinking in every way. And what is critical is that your perspective changes. And when your perspective changes, the way you see things will be very different. And that's not just from an engineering perspective, that's from a people perspective. You'll look at a problem and be like, that's not hard. I've done physics, right? And so I don't want you to be turned away by that. Now, math, yes, you're going to have to take that for a few years in college. But all of it is to push you and to just stretch a muscle and ensure that you are going to be able to do really, really hard things. I can guarantee you, I'm serious, mark my words, if you get an undergraduate degree in engineering, it will be the toughest thing you do. I promise you. Okay, maybe brain surgery is harder, but engineering is next to that. Seriously.
Okay. And so some of my friends, we already thought that because right now we don't do physics, the math that we do maybe is not at that extent, so you don't think it's that deep. Do you think it's still possible to go into engineering, even though right now in high school you're not really taking any of the engineering subjects?
I do think that your preliminary tests into college will matter. I believe that you and your friends and those that are listening, if you've taken the coursework that's in line with your college prep, then I think that you are ready. I do know that in order to study engineering, it's important that you've had calculus and some other courses. And it's possible that if you haven't taken that in your high school, that you will have to maybe do a preliminary summer in college, or you'll have to take it your freshman year and then move further into it. It's possible, because all things are possible. Anything is possible. You just have to have a willingness to do it. And it's possible even if people tell you that it's not, because hello to every counselor that told me I couldn't be an engineer. I am. So it is possible. Okay.
It's possible. Do you think that everybody should be an engineer?
I do. I think that, okay, let me say this. It should be the launch pad. Okay. I think that if you have an opportunity to study, if you get into an engineering program and you have an option to choose between an engineering program or something else, you should take the engineering program, because I think that anything you're going to learn in the something else you can learn it on the back end. I think that once you tackle some of the statistics and the modular thinking and the problem solving that you're going to learn with an engineering curriculum, you'll be able to do the other things. And it can travel with you anywhere you go. You don't have to do it. But let me say this. While I'm saying you don't have to do it as a profession, I'm also going to say this. The world needs more engineers that look like you and I. We need you to become product engineers. We need you to be general managers of warehouses. We need you to become chief technology officers, because people of color are some of the largest technology consumers in the world. And if we're not helping to solve the problems that technology is solving, then that means the rest of the world that doesn't look like you, that doesn't have the same concerns about you, that doesn't know your culture, your background, they're solving a problem for you. And that's just not the way the world works. We need varying perspectives. You need all kinds of different friends to help you get together and solve a problem. Everyone thinks differently. Everyone approaches something differently. And that is what the technological world really needs. And right now, we're in danger of the world's toughest problems being solved by communities of people that are leaving us out. And by us, I specifically mean Black people.
Okay.
So,
what inspires you?
What inspires me? You're inspiring me right now. I think that my inspiration traverses. And so I became an engineer because of my cousin. He was a mechanical engineer. He was 2 years my senior. And he said, "You're smart. Not a lot of women study it, and you'll never not have a job. So you'll always make some money." And excuse me, wealth is not everything, but it is important. So decided that I would study engineering. He inspired me. Once I got into engineering, I became inspired by all of the problems that I was seeing and the ways that we could solve them. Like every time we would look at something, we would sit down as a group of engineers, particularly in my workplace, and say, we can fix that. Or we can begin the process of trying to improve it. And that's how I came here to Africa to work. We had worked on a solution, a problem around what it meant to give birth in non-traditional environments. And to be able to bring that product to places where I've worked, like India and China and Indonesia, and then to come to Africa, to become a globalist in the process, to see that we were actually impacting lives, I was inspired. I was inspired by the work, and now I think I'm inspired by the millennials and Gen Zs, and I'm not even sure what are you, a Gen, whatever comes after all that. I'm inspired by all of you, and that's what the community of NSBE looks like.
Okay. NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers. Could you please let us know how it's like being in NSBE, what NSBE means to you? How did you get to this point where you're the CEO of NSBE? Just everything.
So I'm the first CEO of NSBE. I am honored to come back and lead a membership community of hundreds of thousands of people, about 40,000 students that are in college right now across the U.S. and internationally. We have as I mentioned, over 700 chapters, and I came back to do this work because I've been a part of NSBE since I was in college. I was one of the student leaders, chapter president at my university, regional chair. I held a national role. It's wonderful to be able to come back and to help move the organization forward. If you're a STEM major, if you study science, technology, engineering, or math, you can be a part of NSBE. Now, you can also be a part of NSBE if you're not in STEM, but you cannot hold a leadership role in NSBE. And that is the only time we're exclusive, because it's very important for us to make sure that our members, students in STEM, have an opportunity to have leadership in the technology space. And so that's why that's so important. And so you become a member of NSBE, and you become a part of a family. This community is large, but all of the chapters and all of the different schools, there are places where, when you get to your campus and you're like, I don't know what this class is. I don't understand my math. I need someone to study with. I need help. The NSBE community surrounds you. So it's a community that supports you with your studies. We're a community that supports our students financially. We give away millions of dollars in scholarships that our partners give to us, because it's important for us that Black students that often have difficulty studying a subject like engineering because it's so expensive, that we provide funding for you. So it's a community that supports you in your studies, your financial space. It's a community that's going to encourage you to get across the finish line. And then we gather, and we put on one of the largest career fair conferences every year. More than 15,000 people come to our conferences. So we're the community that's going to get you a job. You guys are going to need jobs. And so, yes, you're going to need a job. You do all that studying. You don't just get to come home and couch surf. You have to get a job. So we're that community as well.
Okay. And you mentioned scholarships.
Yes.
A lot of people in my class, seniors going to uni, we are in search of scholarships. We need scholarships. So
yes.
What is the criteria to qualify for a scholarship from NSBE?
So in order to receive a scholarship from NSBE, you have to be a member. It's not expensive to be a member. You have to do the conversion for me. It's about $15 US. Okay. I'm not sure what that is in
like
CDs.
170.
So it's nothing. It's less than second cup of coffee, all that. So you can get the money for that, and I will challenge every student that tells me they can't and say that is not true, because you all have some funding and you can be a member. So the first qualification is you have to be a member. And then each scholarship has some different qualifications. Some of our scholarships come from individuals. It's an individual, okay, like myself. I might say, I'm from New Jersey in the United States. I might say, I'm going to give a scholarship to any student from New Jersey studying mechanical engineering, something like that. Some of our corporations, our national partners, they may have a GPA scholarship funding, so they might say you have to have a certain GPA or you have to study a certain type of engineering. But the majority of our scholarships are general open scholarships if you meet the membership requirement, maybe some of the course requirement, and most importantly, you have to fill out the application. And that seems like a simple thing, but I'm telling you, so many students don't want to complete the applications, and we don't let your parents do it. Your mom can't do it. Your dad can't do it. You have to fill it out yourself, and then we give the money to you, and it helps with your uni fees. So.
Okay. And is this open to international students?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. We have so many international students in NSBE because we have international chapters, and the majority of our international students are African from the different countries that I mentioned. And a lot of them go to school in the United States. Probably the majority of them. I know some of our students go to KNUST in Kumasi, and there are some other engineering schools in South Africa and others, but a lot of them go to the U.S. That's not mandatory. You don't have to go to school in the U.S. I'm just saying that there's a large community of Africans in the United States that are members of NSBE, and so much so that we're currently working on an agreement that they're writing to help create an affiliate organization right here in Africa for NSBE. So there's a lot of African students, and you have an opportunity to be a part of a community just like you, but also to be exposed to community like other students that are from all over the place in the United States as well.
Okay. So to sign up, do they go to the NSBE websites?
Yes.
What's the process?
So you can go to nsbe.org, nsbe.org. When you go to the website there, you'll be able to sign up as a member. Now, if you're in Ghana and you're watching this, there'll be different ways of signing up as a member. So for West Africa, that's Region 1. But you'll be able to find your way through there. If you're watching this from South Africa, that's Region 4. And what we're working on, that agreement I told you we're working on with the African students now, is to not have all of the countries represented in the different regions, but to be its own separate region. So you have the regions that work across the United States from California to New York, and then like Region 7 would be Africa. But you just go to the website, you can sign up and become a member. Now, if you're not in college right now, you'd be a member of NSBE Junior, which is the high school. And then once you are in college, you become once you become a matriculating student, then you become a part of the collegiate chapter.
So pretty much anybody can join.
You can. And then if you're a professional and you're working and you're not in college anymore, you can be a part of the NSBE professionals.
Okay. So there are lots of benefits to NSBE.
There are
so many.
You get to interview me.
And one of the benefits of NSBE. Yes. So we spoke about NSBE. We spoke about how that is. And you are the CEO of NSBE. So could you please tell us what that is like being the CEO of such a large organization?
Yes. It is a lot of work. You should come to work with me one day. We should do this live. Okay. So because we talked about like how engineering can work across other disciplines, I'm going to explain to you a little bit about my job so you can hear how it's not really engineering anymore, so to speak, right? When I worked at GE and I was working in technology, I was actually designing a product, and thinking very specifically about engineering. How could this ultrasound product identify issues and problems? When I went to work at Wikipedia, we were focused on uptime. How do we keep this website live? How do we keep it working? How do we keep hackers off of our website? How do we keep information from being taken down? So that was technology. Now the work that I do is really running a business that is made up of a community of technologists. So on any given day, I am focused on working with my CFO, who also leads operations. We're focused on HR issues. I have a staff of 50-something people, and so there's always something going on, whether it's with them, their family, their pets, their lifestyle, holidays in the U.S., there's always something going on. So you deal with people issues every single day. Then I have a membership of tens of thousands of people. On any given day, something could happen at a university. Remember, I'm based in the United States. Something could happen at one of our universities. We deal so much with these racial Black Lives Matters issues and stuff. One day I could get a call from the president of a university saying something happened on our campus. If a student was hurt or something happened, I have to go to the school. So I'm dealing with membership issues. Sometimes, even though I don't know how this happens, I could get a call from a parent. My student needs help. Now, that's a little outside of my scope. I have other people that handle that. But sometimes it happens. We're working on a budget. You know, NSBE is almost a $25 million business that that's money I have to raise, and those are bills I have to pay. We have hundreds and hundreds of partners that help fund the mission of NSBE. So I have to, work with the funding, the partners. So there's the money, there's the mission, there's the movement itself, there's the people, there's the staff, there's the partners, there's the world. When wars happen, when things happen in other countries, anything that can actually affect the way that a business is run, I may have to do that on any given day. Oh, and by the way, I have a life. I go to the gym, I play tennis, I call my mom, talk to her. And so all of these things matter, and it's what's important. And it's what happens in the life of running an organization. You're not just focused on one thing. We're getting ready to have our national convention, and so we're preparing for that, and we're studying and getting ready for that. So all of this work is what makes up what a leader has to do every single day. And you have to do it with a smile and with good energy, and you have to inspire the people, and you have to do an interview with Tristan and make him laugh, and but these things are important, and it's all a part of the work. So it's not just one thing, it's every single thing.
So then why do you do it?
Oh, because I love it. I'm always looking for something to do every day. No, I love a few things when it comes to my career. My career has been steeped in technology and in access. When I worked in healthcare, it was bringing adjudicated communities access to healthcare, helping people in need with good health. When I was at Wikipedia, it was bringing free knowledge and free internet to the world. And now I'm committed to bringing the talent of Black people, brilliant Black people, to the world to solve problems. I do it because I know that if we don't put people like you and your friends out into this world with the right thinking, with the right empathy, with the right passion and drive and focus, then we're in trouble. The world needs you. It needs people like you every day because people like me are going to be retiring soon, okay? So I do it so that we can have folks like you behind the scenes doing this work. And then soon you'll sit here and someone else will sit there and they'll say, who is Tristan Canfor-Dumas?
One day.
One day for sure.
So in your response, you added technology. You started speaking about technology, and I wanted to ask this question: to what extent do you believe that technology is the solution to today's problems and even the problems of the future?
To every extent. The world is solving with technology right now. So I had someone say to me that in America, when my mother was born, there was the civil rights movement, very much like when Kwame Nkrumah was working on revolutionizing Ghana and gaining independence. These things had to happen in our culture in order for us to be here today. I would reckon that the same way we moved as Americans through slavery and into voting, the same way President Nkrumah helped Ghana gain its independence, that was the way that you solved the world there. Technology is the revolution of today. All of the problems that we will solve in the world right now are through technology. And the ones that we get wrong will be because of the bias in technology that happens when you don't have diverse people working on these programs. If only one culture of people, if only one community of people, if only one wealth status of people work on thinking through and solving the world's problems, we're all in trouble. Because what kind of perspective does a rich European male have about a Black impoverished girl from the northern region of Accra? Nothing, right? And it doesn't mean that person can't help. It means you need just so many different ways of thinking. You need different genders, you need men, you need women, you need Black, you need white, you need people that come from corporate, you need people that have worked in philanthropy their entire life, all types of people to solve the problem. Once you get all those thoughts together, everybody has to think about how we use technology to solve it. And we know what's happening with, I think we can get into a talk around AI maybe a little bit later, but I mean, that's a perfect reason why.
So from what I'm getting from everything that you have said is that basically what you as well as NSBE is focused on is making sure that everybody has a seat at the table when it comes to these big decisions.
That's a great way to say it.
That everybody is able to have a say in what goes on in the world and not just be followers and be spectators, just having skin in the game, basically.
Everyone has to, because Tristan, the world doesn't look like just you and it doesn't look like just me. It's not all male, it's not all female. We are a mixing pot here, and we need to be able to have people who can think on behalf of people who aren't brought to the table, because everyone won't get to the table. Everyone should, but they won't. But what we need are empathetic leaders that can understand how to go out into the world, hear the voice of the people, and then bring those thoughts and those needs back to the table and then help solve for them. When I was working on handheld ultrasound for women that were having babies in non-traditional spaces, meaning like not in hospitals, right? One, I've never had a baby, and I certainly didn't know what it was like to not be in a hospital. But when I came and I lived in a palm and I worked in the village and I studied with the midwives, I could then go back and design a product to say, well, this is what it will need to be solar powered because there's no electricity. It will need to do, and we started to think about how we solve that problem so that we could help serve people that wouldn't be able to come and tell us what the problem could be. So I'm often asked, what's the strongest trait or skill set that you need to be an engineer? And back in the day, I probably used to say math, critical thinking, scientific. Now I say the best leaders, whether you're an engineer or otherwise, the best character trait that you can have is humility. Because if you come into a problem with arrogance, thinking that you can do it on your own, then you've already forgotten about the people that aren't in the room. And a true leader, a true designer, a true engineer, a true thought leader doesn't just think about themselves, right? The minute you take on leadership, you have to take your own self off and say, psh. You get the stripes of leadership because you take on the burden of other people, right? And so humility just becomes such a big part of it. And no one's like, they're like, well, you're an engineer, you're not a pastor. I said humility. And every person should have that character.
Mm-hmm. So. Do you think, you mentioned about, because right now what I'm getting is that the main issue that is being faced in this world is like a lack of perspective, a lack of different viewpoints on certain issues. And you even mentioned it when you were giving your example of the middle-aged European and then the black girl. How would you say, or how do you think we go about getting that exposure to be able to build a better picture in terms of perspective, in terms of building that perspective, having that perspective?
I mean, I didn't get that exposure until I became a globalist. I became a globalist when I worked for a multinational company, a company that serves more than the United States. I think the more opportunity that you have to travel, to be a part of different cultures and different experiences, which is really courage, because you could travel and go somewhere and just stay closed-minded in your own way. I'm here, but I don't want to take any of this in. This isn't me. I don't like this. So you have to be courage. You have to be inquisitive. And even if you're from a family where you're like, well, we don't have the money to travel, because my father was like, I can't afford. I told my father when I was young, you know, I would take the globe and spin it and say, oh, I want to go here and here and here. And my father was like, I can't afford to send you any of those places. And so eventually life did take me there, but mostly because I had such a strong desire for it. And so for every place that you cannot go, you can open your mind by reading about it. You can be open to, you know, documentaries and programs that can teach you about what it means to live in different spaces. Because most importantly, I'll say this again, you have to have multiple perspectives. You can't make a decision about me based on one perspective. It's not fair. You can't read something on Wikipedia that says, this is how black women with dreadlocks are. It's not fair. Wikipedia, first of all, nobody black wrote that article, but you'll have to interview me about Wikipedia for me to tell you that story. And the perspective is just one-sided. You have to come, you have to experience it, you have to spend time in places, spend time with different people. And so instead of saying, oh, well, my parents don't travel, so I can't go anywhere. Well, be inquisitive with people. Talk to people, ask questions. People always want to talk about themselves. So let people tell you things about themselves, and then when you're given the opportunity, you can do that. For every place that my parents couldn't afford to send me, every single time I was in a work environment and they were like, Can anyone go? I was like, I can do it. I was just raising my hand for everything, especially if it was getting me out of America. I was like, I can leave tomorrow, because I wanted to see the world, and then I fell in love with it.
Oh, wow. That's very, very okay. I want to switch gears and go back to a topic that you kind of alluded to, and that's AI.
Okay.
So AI has kind of taken us just by surprise in the past 2-3 years, the introduction of something like ChatGPT and so on and so forth. How do you think AI is changing the landscape in terms of even, let's just say, African development?
Right. So first of all, let me say this. AI didn't quite take us by surprise, Tristan. We just weren't paying attention, right? And that's what happens, right? We get very caught up in other things. We are distracted. The world sends us distractions on purpose because they don't want us to pay attention to these things. But the work of AI has been going on for quite a long time. And what I can say about it, it's like any piece of technology. There's so much good in it until bad hands are put on it. And this is why I was talking to you about why it was so important for us to have diversity, even in programming and things like that, because the bias of AI will be directly related to the bias of the person that's designing it. And that's with any program. I'm going to tell you a story. If you keep it in the interview, maybe so. If not, save it. But in America in 2012, the two most photographed women in the world were Serena Williams and Michelle Obama. She was the first lady at the time. If you were to Google those names at any time back then, the search that would come up on Google would show pictures of like monkeys and really foul, evil things, animals and things like that, angry black women, things like that. Because the people that were coding the work in the platform were putting racial bias and sayings in there. Because Google doesn't code itself. It's coded by people, right? And so when you have a bias on a platform, I used to say this at Wikipedia, who tells your story matters. If someone wants to write a story about a black Ghanaian born in America, moved to Africa, raised in Ghana, that's your story. Who can write that but you? So to say that there's this general, well, all black kids that are raised in Ghana are like this is bias. That is what AI does. It says we're going to create a software that will detect anger in black men if they walk into stores and in spaces so that we're able to protect a community of shoppers. It's very important to protect shoppers. It's very important to have imagery so that if something happens in a store, you can read the camera, come back, find the people. If you could detect personality traits, I think that, which you can, I think that's awesome. I think we see it now on our iPhones if you've uploaded the new software. If you smile a lot, you see the hand that bubbles up now. I hate that. What if I don't want to be, I don't want you telling people I have a thumbs up if I'm not really, maybe I'm smiling because I'm being courteous, but it automatically does this now. That's AI. If it automatically thinks that when I walk in and I'm on a conference call, I'm on my phone, I'm talking, and then it detects and says, there's an angry woman that just walked into the store. She's dangerous. And maybe I'm detained in the store, but what I'm really doing is I'm focused, or I am angry. I'm just angry at my brother. And I'm angry that I have to go to the store in the middle of the night and get something. I'm not angry to hurt someone. There are imperfections in the software. There are imperfections in products like that I think could be dangerous. There's a process that happened in America during, it still happens now, called redlining. It was designed in the social justice movement to keep black people from buying houses. So they would redline a community and say, we'll only sell houses to black people in this one area, right? It's It's segregation, it's racist, it's illegal. It still happens sometimes. AI can continue to do that. It can say, we will make real estate so difficult to understand when we put it all in an app, or we will make it impossible for Black people to get loans for houses. How? We'll program the software in the bank to not be able to understand what they're saying, or to only accept phone calls between 10 and 3 p.m. What if I work the night shift? Or what if I work during the day and I need to talk to someone at night? AI can do all of these things because it's programmed and told to do so. It's things that you really won't think about until you start to study the work of it. At the same time, it does a lot of really, really good things. In the space of Africa, I think that it can help to advance some of the directives of the various ministries, and I particularly think that Africa should leverage AI and other forms of technology to help in the voting issues with government. I think that's just as important in America as well. I think that there's so much that we're missing in the space of voting, particularly when we have to move further out into the rural areas. And I think that there's an opportunity for us to design some solutions that can do that. But I'm not an expert in AI. I just love tech. And so I study it, I read it. I'm listening to the deficits in our world, and then I'm hoping that together we can start thinking about things and ways to make them better.
How do you think AI will affect jobs in the future?
Well, unfortunately, I believe that there will be a compromise, particularly on the robotics side, machine learning and things like that. I think that there are some things that we just won't need humans to do. Now, AI cannot empathize. AI can't give you a hug. AI can't feel for you when you experience loss in your family and you need time. I mean, AI, it just can't do that. And so I'll always say that we'll need humans and we'll need a human touch. I do believe that as we move out of an age group that is actually hands to machines work, as that group starts to retire, AI is going to start to close that gap. It will be important that your generation have a strong tech savviness. And so while you may not study STEM or engineering, you may not even go to college, you're going to have to know how to be tech savvy. You just won't be able to get away with it, because I believe even some of the very basics of jobs will require that.
So, because I keep thinking about this. I saw this study. It was a while ago. It was done a while ago. I'm not sure if I'm getting everything correct in the study, but basically it's about an AI model that took the bar, and it did very well. It's like better than most humans. So how do you see AI? Because there's this fear that AI will replace certain jobs, like in the healthcare industry, in law, in like banking. How do you think, or what do you think are the effects of AI in the future?
So let's stick with the law example. I already struggle, particularly again with the American judicial system, where we are judged by a peer, a community of our peers. I fortunately have never been in a place where I was being in a place where I was arrested or had to be in court and have someone to judge me. But I can guarantee you that if I were, God forbid, it wouldn't be a judge of 12 Black women from New Jersey, and those are the only peers I have. So I already think that there's injustice there. How much more injustice in a system that doesn't have a heartbeat, a pulse, blood running through its veins? I understand that there is a way that we will need to process the legal ramifications of our world. But basically what we're saying is AI will help us move people through the system faster. And one, hopefully we can have less people going into jails and things. But I believe without any uncertainty that there will be a greater impact on the people that end up on the wrong side of justice because of errors in AI. And eventually what could happen is people won't question AI. If the reason we're doing it is so that we move swifter and sleeker, then that's the very reason why we won't go back and double check. And it's very dangerous and it is very scary. As a black woman that has black brothers and nephews and great nephews, and I'm very concerned about the safety and the lifestyle of our people. In America, I'm very much there because our lifestyle is based on an injustice that's based on race. And so I'm very worried that we could have some challenges there. So,
but because I'm getting this this idea from what you're saying that with something like AI, just with almost anything in the world, is even something that I saw a while ago. I saw it in a podcast, and they were basically talking about something like this along these lines, and we're mentioning things that something like AI is a tool, and just as you said, the tool can be used for good, it can also be used for bad. It just depends on the person that's behind it. So doesn't that mean, or wouldn't that mean that if the person behind it is getting all the perspective and is getting all of these things, wouldn't that then mean that AI would actually be good? Do you think that would be a situation where that could happen?
I think that there is great potential and actual even currently happening where data is for good. I believe that. Data is helping us solve problems in a great way. And I believe that if we can be just as intentional about teaching empathy and passion as we are with the skill set of technology, they have to come together. One of the things that NSBE has done in its summer engineering experience for kids, this is a summer program where we teach kids for 3 weeks in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Again, these are American grades. So probably ages 10, 8 till about 12. We're teaching them all summer, they're learning various engineering, how to fly drones, how to program, build cars, electronics, gaming, everything. But we teach them Black history and we teach them empathy and design. What we want you to understand is that a lot of times the world designs and they leave us out. So we want you to understand, as people who should know what it feels like to be left out, how will you build and solve for other people? I believe that there's some psychology that needs to be taught alongside engineering in the future. It's not something I ever did as a student either, but I believe that the future of technology will involve designing a curriculum that walks alongside it, that pulls out the goodness of people so that we remove the sinister selfishness and the arrogance. And we see that heavily even in Silicon Valley right now. If you take a ride through Silicon Valley, the main highways called the 101, and some of the billboards and the things that are up and just the cockiness of what it means to build apps and solve problems. It's not pride, it's arrogance. And we have to find a way to begin to tear that down so that we are a people that really has the best intentions of our world in mind. And that's probably the scariest part about AI to me.
All right, so we've spoken about everything has to do with AI, and I wanted to know your opinion on the extent to which education plays a role in this, because in my mind, I was reading this book, I read it a while ago, it's called The Laws of Human Nature. It's by Robert Greene. Mm-hmm. And basically in that he details how human beings progress over time. And to focus specifically on the age group between, I think he said 12 to getting to about 21, I think, around there, is during that period where we are now finding ourselves, finding our identity. That's when we have that want or that longing to belong, where we look for somewhere, a group to identify with, basically. And it's during that period where people are more susceptible to fall into peer pressure, to fall into making rash decisions. It's like they're experimenting, they're trying to find themselves. And to an extent, education also enters into there, because that's when they are also exposed to certain things, and that's when they also dive into certain areas and certain industries. Basically, the education system kind of helps form their identity. And so I wanted to know your opinion and like the extent to which you think education plays a role in these problems that are coming into today's society.
You know, it's interesting because education, I mean, I think education is critical. And then there are some people that are doing the most amazing things in this world that, you know, haven't had traditional education. So when we talk about education, you know, do you mean traditional, or do you mean education overall? Because I just want to know, do we want to go down the road of what it means to have a formal education, or the brilliance of the world in education, whether it's self-education or things like that?
I think I want to go into both.
Okay.
So let's start with maybe the traditional system. Let's start with the formal education.
So your traditional system, you know, you're in school every day. I think that we're taught a colonistic-based education. And, I mean, I'm a part of that. I went to a Catholic, all-girls, white school. But then I went to an HBCU, when we talked about the historically black college and university. And that was a place where I started to feel a little more comfortable and stronger in who I was. I moved to Ghana, even more so. But at least in America, I do think, you know, I don't know much of the educational system here. But I think that when we reach beyond the sciences and we get into more of the humanities, it's very, you know, colonistic way of learning. I don't want to say that it is the source or the root of problems. I don't believe that. I believe so much in knowledge. So that knowledge versus education, but I believe in the power of knowledge. I loved that about Wikipedia, free knowledge and everyone in the world having access to it. I think that education has its disciplines, and then it has its drawbacks, but only when it's controlled by a thought process that doesn't practice inclusivity. So I'm saying the same thing over and over again. I'm just kind of saying it differently. But I think that what you can take away from me is that I believe in a diversity of thought, and I believe in a diversity of processes. And I think that when we're just taught to think based on one culture's way of doing it, or when we're just taught to solve based on one culture's way of doing it, or when our perspectives are narrowed based on one culture's perspective, then we're one-sided and we're missing. I think that I was like that for a long time. I think I was taught a certain way, educated a certain way, even though I grew up in a black family, went to a black church. It wasn't, I think until I went back to an HBCU that I started to question knowledge. It wasn't until I started studying more of black history studies or global studies, African studies, the studies of different cultures, Asian cultures and others, that you start to learn and maybe even have an appreciation for how others think. And I'm not sure if the traditional educational system teaches you how to think with an open heart. Yeah, not the traditional one. I think that if you're homeschooled, self-taught, Montessori type schools, then your parents or the systems have the ability to say, this is a microphone. And yes, it is black, and there's an on-off button, and it's on a stand, but it's also, and then they help shape and design what it is to the person that they're trying to teach it to. I've never been taught like that. I come from a traditional educational model, but that's just something that I think is my thought process. And so therefore, as it relates to AI, if you only have traditional education, then, once again, I think we're being bamboozled. I think I was not taught to think about solving problems by bringing in different communities of people until we did this work that we were doing here. And then we brought in midwives and the minister of health and engineers and a doctor, and, all types of people that helped us to solve these types of problems. I think it's some of the best work we've done, and I think that we have to, I don't know, now you're making me want to be a part of this AI movement in a different way. I think I've got to say something in this movement a little bit differently.
Okay, so for the last topic of today, we've gone on for quite a while, and I wanted to get your thoughts on the youth and the youth potential, the youth power. And my guidance counselor, shout out to you, she gave me this book that's called Youth Power. It's by a Ghanaian. His name is Yao Pebi. And basically in the book is talking about the potential of the youth and the fact that most of the youth of today, they don't really realize that potential. They don't see that potential. They don't know. It's like that saying, for lack of knowledge, my people perish.
Right.
So it's like, how do you think we could solve that problem of bringing the knowledge to the youth? And how do you think the youth can solve today's problems?
Well, first of all, the most powerful movements in the world have always been by a group of convening youth at any point in time in our world. And youth could have meant up until, the late 20s, but it hurts me to know that your peer group doesn't understand the power of who you are. I mean, clearly, I believe in the movement. I literally work for one. I'm surrounded by millennials every single day. I literally do this for a living, and I do it because I'm inspired by it. And wow, it's amazing to me, because when you all put your mind to something and you gather, whether you gather in silence or in protest, whether you gather, on your keyboards or with signs in your hands, we're listening. And I want your community, your peers, your friends, your listeners to know that the world is in need of all that you all have to do and all that you all are bringing. And if you don't do it, we've talked about the dangers of what could happen if you don't do this. This is the one time you're going to hear me say, even if you don't study engineering, okay? If you don't gather, if you don't convene, if you don't take seriously the assignment that is on your lives, then all of the things that we've been talking about today, however many ways this conversation gets chopped up, it all boils down to the world has problems, technology is solving them, and if you all don't come together to help fix the technology, the problems will be solved by someone that doesn't have your good intentions in mind. And so I believe strongly in you. Maybe we need to do a better job, meaning the older generation, of listening and reminding you. I don't know. I'm going to ask Tristan a question. What do we need to do differently? Because if you all don't feel the relevance of your power, I wonder if it's because we're not telling you or showing you or reminding you. So what would you want me to take back to my peers and tell them?
I think this boils down to exposure. I think with the youth in general, most of the people, they look at a problem in a certain way, in one specific way, and maybe how the older generations could help solve that problem is telling the person that you can't only look at this in this way. There are other ways to go about it. I'm trying to remember, let me see, what is it? It's a quote from Nietzsche. And he said that For it is not because things are difficult that we do not do, but it's because we do not do that things are difficult.
Oh, wow.
And so it's like that paradigm alone, most of the people in my youth group, in my group in general, just you look at it and like, it's difficult, I can't do it. But maybe what the older generation could show the youth is that it's not because it is difficult that you're not doing, but it's because you're not doing that is difficult, you see. So it's like, I strongly believe that if the older generation can kind of push the younger generation, not really push, more like pull them into that paradigm where they can believe that it's not just the problem alone, it's my response to the problem that will dictate the outcome. So that's what I think.
I love that. And so. I'm going to do my best to make sure that I share that. But no, and to your peers, your counterparts, your generation that is listening, we do believe in you. Sometimes we have to have a lot more patience in the process, but we do believe in you. We believe in the fact that you all have a unique version or a unique way of expressing your hope, a unique way of fighting, a unique way of believing and persevering. And I think what we should know together is that you may think differently, your listeners may think differently, my peer group thinks differently, but it doesn't make it wrong. It's just different. And so if we come together and listen to each other, and you ask some questions and I give a little bit of my perspective, and then I ask some questions and you give me some of your perspective, then we're doing everything that we just talked about for the past however long we've been talking today. And together, we're going to be able to solve that better. But what we can't do is be against one another, because the world is already doing that. They're already against us. Let's find a safe space and come together and try and do this better. Yeah.
So now let me so there was this tradition that we kind of started in this podcast and this show.
This is the part where I ask you questions. That's the tradition.
Not
Send
necessarily.
your vote in if that should be the new tradition, and I will come back and interview Tristan.
So basically, I got this concept from a podcast that I watched. It's called Diary of a CEO. And in that podcast, basically, the previous guest asks a question for the new guest to answer.
Oh, yes. I've heard of this before.
Yes. Okay.
So I'm going to give you a question for your next guest.
Yes, there you go. And then I'll ask you the question from the previous guest.
Ooh, okay. And so the way this is working, if I'm right, like I have no idea who your next guest will be.
No.
Whether they're an older person, younger person, business person. Okay. All right. All right.
Okay.
The question that I have for them is, what? Oh boy, I have so many questions. Hold on. All right. I want to know, who is a person that they would love to meet, and when they meet that person, what would they ask them?
Okay.
That's the question I'll have. Yeah.
Okay. And then the question that's my previous guest.
Okay.
He asked, the previous guest, just for context, he founded this very, very big basketball event in Ghana. It's called Jellyfest. Okay. And he's the founder, the CEO of Jellyfest. So he just very cool guy. He's,
okay.
Yeah, shout out to you.
But I'm cool too, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
yes,
I was just going to say.
Definitely. Definitely. So he asked the question, what are you doing right now to put your family name out there so that whenever or wherever you go, they know who you are and they know what your family means?
That is such a good question. And let me tell you why I love that question. Tristan, I love legacy. When I turned 50, something happened, and I think it started I lost my father. My father passed away, but then when I turned 50, there was this thing about legacy, and I was just like, all the questions I need answers to that I didn't know to ask, So I started like rounding up my aunties and everybody, like, I need to know this, I need to know that. Like, where did my father, like, where to school? I don't know anything. So I'm loving the legacy question. And so what I'm doing, my family name means as much to me as the name of God stamped on my life as a Christian. So I'm a child of God. I'm a Uzzell. And what I'm doing is getting my house in order and keeping my house in order. So there's so many different ways to do that, Tristan. There is a lifestyle of righteousness that I'm committed to as a woman of faith. So I want my reputation to be one that my father used to always say, you make sure they don't say that about Jay's daughter. My dad's name was Jay, so that was his way. In church we're taught, to ensure that people that speak of us speak well. So it's important to me that I shore up my reputation. Sometimes that means as a leader, I do that by, I can't go all the places I want to go. I can't always do the things that everybody else is doing. So I'm mindful of where I am and what I do. I'm also, I pour into my nieces and nephews. I have 13 nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews, and I do my best to pour into them. I'm going to take some advice you gave me earlier and try and listen to them more and partner with them more. And so I am doing my best to serve them and to set them up for a future. I've done something at my university called an endowment, where I've started an endowment at North Carolina A&T, which is will fund a lot of activities at the school. So I've been fortunate from a financial perspective to be able to give money back to my school so that someone else can have the experiences hopefully that I've had or even better. And then, I believe that I continue to do the right thing in terms of investing, studying, investments. I've recently worked with my financial advisor to do a scrub of my financial portfolio of some things that are outside of what I believe as a Christian. So there were some investments that I had not intentionally, but they were in companies that maybe aren't in line with my belief. And so cleaning up my portfolio. I'm writing. I hope to leave stories behind for my family members. And I had an honor of doing a documentary where I've been recording elders in my family. And I've put this thing together and played it recently for my cousins. And for us to stay on top of it and to stay connected. And in that story, our elders talk to us and tell us what they expect from us as cousins and family members. And so I'll hold on to that for posterity and hope that we'll all be able to do that. So I've tried to do those things, watch my reputation, honor God, do right with what he's given me, serve my family, serve the community that served me, and tell the stories.
Okay. Well,
Nope. I have to ask a question. I have a question for you, Tristan.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Let's start with something fun. Because if I post this on my site, it's going to be Americans watching it. So, football or soccer? Please break it down for us.
It's football.
It's football.
Yeah.
But why do you think now in America, European Ghanaian football, which we still call soccer, has become the rave? It has become one of the most popular sports in America. Why do you think so?
This is, I think, purely is a process of globalization. So it's a process of the world becoming more connected. And just as that is happening, you also have big football stars moving to America to go and play. And I know probably the biggest one, the best one, Messi, he moved to Miami to go and play there. And just him moving alone brought so many more eyes to MLS and to the American soccer, football. And just that alone started bringing more eyes to it. And as I said before, the youth, they are looking for something to belong, something that's like they can identify with. So if it's like the movement that's going on right now, people start seeing that and they join it and it builds in traction. So it's like the world is just becoming closer and closer, right. And they are seeing things from other places. And so
I'm so glad I asked that question. You heard it first here. Next question. This will be my last one. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being absolutely not, 10 being absolutely yes, how close are we to Tristan possibly wanting to study engineering when he gets to college?
Okay, so I was thinking of this course. It's called business engineering.
Okay.
So that's basically, it's like the mix of what I want to do and also what my mom wants me to do.
Of course.
So it's like business.
His mom's an engineer too. So is his dad.
So it's like the business parts. That's what I like.
Right.
I like everything that has to do with entrepreneurship and all of that. But there's some elements of engineering that I think I need. And
so
you mentioned.
Where
so I think it's like it's leaning towards the 8, 9. Yeah, it's around there.
Mission accomplished. All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So for the viewers, the listeners, everybody, if you want to find Miss Uzzell, where do they look?
So you can find me on LinkedIn at Janeen Uzzell. It's spelled JANEEN UZZELL. You can follow me on Instagram at Janeen Uzzell, and you can follow me on Twitter at Janeen U.
Okay, thank you. It will be plugged inside the description, maybe on the video. Whatever it is, please follow her. Message her, let her know that you came from this podcast and you enjoyed what happened. If you have any questions you want to ask her about NSBE, about anything that has to do with Black excellence, youth excellence, anything whatsoever, feel free to ask her and let her know that I sent you. So that
yes, please let me know. But I love that you just used Black excellence, because we're moving into our 50th year, and that is literally our theme: Black engineering excellence.
Wow.
I love that. See, we're right on brand, sir. I love it.
Yes. So if you guys also enjoying what we're doing on the channel, make sure to follow the channel Empower on Spotify, on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram too if you're enjoying what we're doing. T_C_Duma, that's my username. You see all my socials, everything that's there. If you're enjoying whatever it is going on, feel free to also send me people that you also want me to interview if you think that maybe they may be interesting for the channel as well. If you have any questions as well, and maybe any topics you want to cover in future videos, I'm all ears. And without further ado, I believe in you. We believe in you. Go and make the world a better place. Don't just live life, but thrive.
Oh, I love that. Don't just live life, thrive. Thank you so much.
Yeah.